Hey guys, Teresa here. I am getting ready to do a mother mold using grate foam on my urethane mold, and I figured that I would just show you what I am going to do. So for the first part, I'm just going to let you know what I'm going to do is actually, because this is still pretty tacky, it's cured. I wanted to give it an extra day to cure, but I am going to actually cover it with some plastic. The first thing I'm going to do is use some mold release and give the mold a little spray. I'm going to cover it with this plastic here. The great stuff is going to go on, and this is the gaps in cracks filler. Then I'm going to put a layer of some screen just for a little reinforcement. And you're going to need some gloves. And when I use the gloves, I'm also going to spray them with the mold release so I can give it a little pressure and squeeze out the air once I get the great stuff laid down. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just give it a light mist with the mold release, and this is, I believe, 1 part castor oil, 14 parts rubbing alcohol. And this is the safest for rubber molds. You don't want to use cooking spray, that type of thing like other people are using. That'll actually destroy and eat up your rubber. So I'm going to give this a good spray. Now I'm just going to lay down the plastic. And this is just a clear painter's little plastic cover. The reason why I want to use this is because you can actually get it in the creases to shape the form that you need. So I have one hand because I didn't bring my tripod down here, and so I'm just going to smooth this out and get it into the creases the best that I can. Here we have it all covered with the plastic. Sorry for the lighting. I moved my workspace into the garage because I have everywhere else taken up with all the projects that I've started, and really just need to get back to finishing everything. Next thing, I'm just going to make sure that I put on my gloves. And next, we're going to give this a good shake. I like to shake it for about a good 2-3 minutes. Actually, I lied. Just give it a good shake. I was thinking about sealing texture. So we're just going to take the spray nozzle and give it a twist on. And now I'm just going to start giving it a layer. I'm going to get this covered up. Now I do highly recommend anytime you play with this stuff to really use gloves. Don't get it on your clothes, tie your hair back. This stuff is super sticky and messy. So I'm going to cover this up. Now I'm going to just give my glove a little spray of the mold release. Kind of tap this around. Get what I can covered pretty well. Alright, and I just tapped the first layer on here just to make sure that I could get it into the little grooves. It can be manipulated, but this first layer I like it to kind of be a little more compact. Then I'm just going to go ahead and add more, if it'll come out. And the struggle is real. Sometimes these cans just aren't the greatest, but I'm going to try to get the rest of this can on here. And you guys already know, if you've worked with this foam, it pretty much, in, maybe 5 times its size, 10 times its size. But I'll get this covered and come right back. And Now, the next thing I'm going to do is just cover this with the screen, because you can't use this stuff and contain it. It has to be able to breathe, and I feel like this will just give a little more reinforcement and structure. Okay, I'm going to get this screen tucked around. Just sprayed my glove with a little more mold release. Again, it's the castor oil and rubbing alcohol blend. And I'm just going to pat the screen down into the foam. Remember, this stuff is super sticky, so it'll be pretty easy. Alright, and it might be a little hard to tell, but you'll see that I have it pretty patted down to the surface. And I'm just going to take a break and let it sit. So it's been about 15 minutes, and I'm going to give this a nice pat down once again. Just make sure that everything's kind of pushed in and formed the way you want it. By compressing it, it just gives it a firmer structure as well. But this is going to be a heavy piece because it's pretty big. If you can tell here, I mean, I'm just going to need it to have a really strong structure. You'll be able to tell if you actually hear. You'll hear in some areas where the air is releasing, and that is what you want. Alright guys, so this is actually the next day. I had another can of Great Stuff, which was a dud. I did, use one little spray out of the can, and so it was clogged, and I tried everything as far as the goo off and acetone to kind of clear the nozzle, and it didn't work out. So I grabbed 2 more bottles today, but 2 hours after I did that last night, you'll see that everything is like nice, solid, dry, and very firm. So what I'm going to do today is just give this, now we have the screen on top of this. This was compressed. I'm going to give it now another layer of the spray foam. And this time I'm just going to want to make sure that I get this perimeter really nicely. With this great foam stuff too, you can get away sometimes with, kind of taking the nozzle off, cleaning it, and storing it for, a week or two. But pretty much what the can says is that it's basically one use. And I would say so as well, unless you want to go through the hassle. So I'm just going to get this all filled in, and this time I am not going to touch or try to smooth anything out. This is going to just stay the way that it is, and I'm going to let this expand. And you'll see here why this is great too, because you'll see that there's some little gaps, and with the screen you can actually fill those right in. That wasn't a good example. Oh, fill it right in with the screen. I'll show you better here. Right in through the screen. Alright, have it pretty much covered up. And now I'm just going to let it sit for about 15 minutes. So you'll definitely want to just take a look at it. Once you start seeing the top get a little shiny, what it's going to do is start feeling like a little firm shell. And that's exactly what I'm going to look for. Usually it depends on the weather. So if you have moist weather, some winds that are getting on, a fan running in the room, of course things are going to cure a lot quicker. Now, if you didn't want to wait so long from the first layer, the one way to speed this process up is to dampen some newspaper and spread it over the top. So moisture and air. This is what great stuff needs to actually cure correctly. You can't put this stuff in a box, contain it, cover this with plastic, and that's the reason why I use the screen, because it really needs the air to breathe and for it to cure. So that would actually speed up the process. Again, putting a layer of moist newspaper over the top would have sped the first process up, that first layer, but still it just took 2 hours. And listen, if you made a rubber mold, this is just another step to that waiting process, right? Alright guys, it's been about 15 minutes and it's not sticky on the top, so it's formed its little shell there. I'm going to give it another 5 or 10 minutes because when I push down on it, I can still feel that there might be some of the foam that hasn't yet expanded to its fullest. So I'm going to come back in about another, see that? About another 10 minutes. Alright, so it's been about another 5 minutes and I think we're pretty good. So what I'm going to do, if you did use the screen, is I'm just going to start sticking anything up that's hanging over. I'm going to go around the perimeter and do this. So now, as you can see, it's not so sticky, and you're going to want to go along and compress everything in again. As you're going to squeeze, you're going to let out air pockets. Sometimes there'll be a little burst, and some of the wet foam will still continue to come out, and that is absolutely fine. So we're going to mold this. You can fill in any little areas that you want, and technically you don't even really need to. I just want to make sure that this is a complete firm structure for me, as my mold is made for cement pours, so that gets pretty heavy. Much softer in there, see? Now, this is absolutely optional, but this is what I'm going to do. I am going to really give it a good squeeze, but I'm going to give it another layer of the screen. Again, this is completely optional, and you absolutely don't have to do it if it's a smaller mold, but because mine is, you know, about 2 feet, 1.5, something around that space. I'm preferring to do this, but again, it's optional and you do not have to do this step. Even if you're on a budget and your piece is smaller, you do not have to continue with this step, but I am going to for this mold particularly. Alright guys, this is it, and I am going to let this sit for 8 hours. I'm going to come back, and what I'll do is give it a good knock, and if it feels like and sounds like it's cured, then I'll leave it at that, and then I can demold it. If not, and I still feel some tender areas, like this area, I made it a lot thicker, so it's going to take a little bit more time. Well, I don't know, 8 hours will probably be good, but I'll be monitoring this section here as it's so much thicker I filled in, just to try to make it more level. That way I won't have to do much prompting to get everything leveled out when I do my pour. But alright, we'll be back in about 8 hours. Alright guys, we are ready to demold. It's been actually 5 hours, but you can see that it is fully cured. So now, because I have the plastic, this should be pretty easy to release. Let's see what this looks like. Here we are. Now I'm just going to trim off the excess plastic. And I don't have something that's so messy, and the good thing is because if this is ever exposed to light, which I don't plan on it being, you know, outdoors or anything like that, at least the foam on this side is protected by the screen, and I can still spray the mold release here on this side. So, the cover back on. Easy peasy. Well, there you guys have it. I hope you try this method and it works for you. And if it does, be sure to tag me in your video or leave a comment, because I would love to hear. All right, Teresa here, signing out. You guys take care.